Welcome back to Brotato, and today we're playing the Fisherman using the shredder gun with the goal to get as much bait as possible. So not just that you buy stuff and then when you roll you just buy the bait, but rather the goal is to get as much as I can. This was a very early attempt and it's kind of important to know because I was still figuring out how does this actually work, how do the enemies behave, does the shredder even work, because I've tried out a few weapons but pretty much I'm at a point where I don't really understand the enemies and also not the strategies with this. So you'll see something rather rare on my channel, which is I just lost. Now surprisingly, I only lost on round 2 and round 3, and this is why I'm even showing this run, because pretty much it's just like movement needs to be improved, but it's not like, oh, I had 1% dodge and I just replayed until it eventually works out. In other words, if I was a little bit better, this would have worked out, but I wasn't waiting for like a giga lucky thing and just reset until that. So in my view, it's a valid run, you know, because it wasn't waiting for the perfect moment, but I think it will be nice to just check out and see how exactly did it work out with the shredder. And as you can see, my priority is just roll as much as possible, and I want to skip as many items as I can if that means that I can get more bait. So now, okay, that was a little bit too much of a roll because I couldn't even buy, though it also doesn't harm all too much, it wastes a bit of money. And this is wave 3. Now I'm dying a lot. This was so difficult for me to deal with, as you can see. But believe it or not, after this, I will never ever die again. In other words, this can easily be replicated, right? I had no extreme luck or anything. We have a normal amount of weapons. We didn't get a special item. So this is why I considered still showing off this run, because 474 bait in a single run? Isn't that a little bit like a ginormous amount? Now, after I made this video, I looked up what people achieved, like as a world record, if that even exists, and I found one from Vice the Fallen Paladin. Greetings to you. He managed to get 553 bait. And I think this also kind of shows just how insane this video is, that this was without dedication or anything, though also some lucky things happened. Okay, you'll see that down the line. Though I also need to remind you and empathize this, that I'm just a very big beginner. Like, I think my skill in Brotato is decent. I wouldn't say I'm like excellent or so, but I know how to put myself into silly situations to entertain myself and to survive them and get out of them. Most of the times, okay? Not always. But I would say skill level wise, I'm decent, but if you look at someone like the Fallen Paladin, dude, he rocks shields and he just dodges all of them and nukes them and destroys them. And when I started this, my first goal was, and this is what we achieved here, I just wanted to have so much damage that the enemies can't even get close to me. Because what is the problem? Well, at first you just get swarmed by the enemies and they only deal 2 damage to you, so you can survive that with like 18 or 25 HP. But then you start killing them, but they deal like 5 damage with each bullet. And to deal with these enemies, you pretty much need speed, you need survivability, you also want to have luck just to get the fruits, but also maybe to get crates, especially since you kill so many enemies, right? Like, talking about a melee build right now, you need armor, maybe another form of survivability like lifesteal or life regeneration, just something to keep you alive. And that is just so much to think of, and also things that you just need to know, like what are the milestones that I require to outrun the enemies or to two-shot them. And I said, you know what, I don't care about any of this, I'll just go for max damage, we go for range, we go for attack speed, a little bit of luck, eventually I will go for crit, but that is a different reason that was actually not intended, but well, a certain item showed up that wants to have crit, so I was like, I'll take that, that's money, you know. But yeah, it will show in this video a lot that this was like a super early attempt, and believe it or not, this was my very first shredder attempt. I did a bunch with the sticks before, with the spear, with the slingshot especially. Like, my first goal was with the slingshot to kill all of the enemies that they don't even get to dash. Because if we don't build up any defenses, then this means if they dash and a bullet hits us, ouch. Which we'll see later on in this run, because there's a point where I'm like, oh, I want to move out to collect the money, but the enemies deal like 20 damage to me per hit. Now I have like 32 HP. Now at this point you already see me skip certain weapons, like when we see a blue one because it's quite expensive, but then I keep buying the normal one, and I think what would have been right is to just say, I stop when I have them all on blue levels. Now with the shredder, the higher level they are, the more likely they become to explode, until the red levels where they are guaranteed to explode, but we are pretty much right right now hitting a point where I can kill all of them and they'll die. Now, one thing that is unique to the Fisherman is the bait gives you harvesting, but also when you pick up the bait, the enemies keep spawning for all future waves. This means if you just buy more and more of it, eventually the entire stage is filled with them, so really don't underestimate that you need to be able to one-shot them before they even dash, because once the bullet storm starts, you'll just die otherwise. You need some form of healing. And as you can see, it looks still kind of iffy here, but that's mostly because I didn't stand in my corner. I used a corner strategy here. I kind of noticed it's the best way to do it because the enemies clump up. You've seen this in many of my videos where I did that. And here I even decided to go for a little bit of range damage, because if we have so much % damage scaling, then we want to increase the base damage, right? And the base damage is based on the weapon, but also on the range damage that we have. Attack speed is also very important, but as you see, I skip everything else. This is currently at least how I roll, and I wished I would just skip all of the weapons the moment they were all blue, or it may be purple, but this would need to be tested. But locking, for example, this blue gun here is a ginormous investment that may not be needed, and that means I could roll more if you already have enough damage, and then I would just find more bait. Because even just getting one more bait per round means I would get 19 bonus bait, and that makes a big difference when you try to hit the highest numbers. Now here you can see it's kind of simple to deal with the enemies, and my strategy was I want to stay here, and we got lucky with 2 crates, but I want to stay here, that all of the material stacks up. When there's too much material on the floor, then the new material will just accumulate inside of this material and get bigger. So if I just run through it at the end of the wave, but that's the dangerous part, I have to run through it at the end, meaning the enemies will be able to shoot at me, then I still get everything. But luckily there are also a bunch of fruits. I wanted to run down to the trees, but since this is the first attempt with the shredder and I have 0 armor, I was like, nope, I'm fine. I just don't want to die again, because then I can count this as a, in quotation mark, valid run for my, for my head, just for my sanity. And honestly, maybe I should have taken the harvesting here, because any bonus that you take helps you, and I should have gotten the recycling machine. This was a ginormous mistake, and I'll explain to you now why. So in this game, the more you reroll, the higher the costs, right? This is, by the way, an incredible jackpot. Not only more enemies, but also a huge amount of bonus money, even though we don't have a lot of curse, but now I want to have as much curse as possible. But back to the topic of rerolling. So in this game, if you buy the entire shop empty, you get a free reroll. That doesn't mean the current roll is free, but it pretty much pauses it and you just pay 0, so the price doesn't go up. In other words, compared to someone who just buys everything and never gets them, they have to pay way more at the end. Like, for example, someone who doesn't do this at wave 20, they'll maybe pay 100. Well, if you do this, you lock all of the bait until they are full in the shop, and then you get 1 free reroll every 4 waves, you'll only pay like 70 at the end, meaning you'll be able to reroll a lot more. And you can further extend this. You don't just need to roll for just a bait and lock that, but especially with the recycling machine, you can lock weapons and then you sell them again for a lot of money. You still make a minus, but as long as this combined total of what you paid there is less than the last rerolls that you have to pay, you'll have that money as leftover and you can roll again to get more bait. I hope this kind of makes sense, because otherwise a lot of what I'll be doing here doesn't really add up to you, and you'll think, oh, Dex is wasting so much money on cheap items to just buy them as 4 set, meaning we buy 4 things at once later on, once everything becomes more expensive. But that is the reason. Now, you will see that I won't pick up a lot of great items where usually you would say, oh my god, that's so amazing that I got that, like the Giant's Belt, because what does it do for us, right? My main focus right now is just to make sure that I can actually kill the enemies before they even get to dash, that I'm not at a risk of dying. And again, I'm trying to figure out, how many stats do I even need to deal with the enemies? So I will have too much attack speed, I'll have way too much damage, I'll have too much range, and I won't have enough armor at a specific point where money will be left over on the floor. And that is one of the biggest things I could have changed, because we're not just talking about 40, 50 material, we are talking about a couple hundreds that I wasn't able to get, and if I went for armor a little bit earlier, as long as I can heal, I could have walked through, gotten the trees, gotten the material, and all kind of that stuff. And I'll do something that I don't usually do, which is you will get to see see my early experience is like some of these things, when I try to do challenges, you just see the final result, but not really what happened early on. And here what went through my mind was, I need to get out of this corner, because if I stand in the center, I can kill the enemies faster, I can gather all of the trees, I can also somewhat more easily gather the material. The point is rather that I can freely move around, not that I'm in the center. But the moment I went out, I took a bullet to the face, 13 damage, 11 damage, and then there are also the cursed ones, right? So I was like, oh, this doesn't feel great, you know? Not right now, I can somewhat get through it, but in the future, if I want to do this again in like 4 waves, 5 waves, with the growth of the enemy and damage, I'll just die. Now, I decided against the sharp bullet because we have the explosions, right? So we don't really need the penetration, but later on I kind of wish that I've gotten it. There's just a point where you get so many of these enemies that they build up and they storm you like crazy. But one thing I actually didn't know how that worked is, it gives you minus piercing damage, and I'm pretty sure this applies to all of the shots you right now have. So currently, our piercing doesn't have a penalty, meaning we deal 100% of our damage on every single pierce. Correct me if I'm wrong with that, but it says minus 0%, so that should be the case. So if I get the minus piercing damage and it applies to all of the pierces we have right now, just for +1, you know, we already have 4, then that wouldn't be so great, but that's another issue. I kind of underestimated just how much damage we'll have. Like, we have so much damage later on that we can easily destroy bosses with a few shots, meaning these normal enemies are relatively easy to kill. And this lens here is kind of a perfect example. We pay 44 for a reroll that costs 32, so in other words, we only pay 12 for the lens to buy that. And I even started considering to just lock super cheap weapons, because we can have one slot in our weapon arsenal where we say we rotate this weapon constantly out, just that we can buy something in the shop and sell it again. And if we can get the reroll cost down to 12 here, just by buying one item, then you may understand how if we do this with certain items and get them recycled so we get money back, and the reroll is for example 80 right now, but we only paid like 40 maybe for the 2 recycled weapons, then we just save 40 material. Which means we have an additional reroll most likely. Actually, I think it's guaranteed, right? But depending on how the costs play out, but the point is we save money, more rerolls, and then we get paid. So at this point, I'm still thinking, man oh man, how do I get out of this corner? I'm happy that I have all the material here, but it just feels like I could do so much more. Maybe I shouldn't have attempted this, because I could have easily died, as you see there. Like, I went in because I knew I had a bunch of fruits there, and I heal more from fruits. But even then, holy moly, I have 2 HP left. One bad spawn, one bad dash, one more bullet hit, not enough healed by just having 1 fruit less, and I would have been dead. So yeah, I go a lot more for safety, and I think, yeah, this was the first time I even picked up armor, less even as a defensive tool and more as a greedy tool, because I wanted to be able to get out of this corner to collect everything. Now the spyglass is absolutely amazing, because we are rolling so much, and there's actually a difficulty because it becomes a lot harder to evaluate the value of buying and recycling weapons and buying cheap items if the reroll costs go down so much. And I think I mess this up a lot, but that's just a typical topic that you have to do many times to better understand what exactly are the requirements to make it worth it to get a free reroll. This really doesn't look so critical, but if you think that there's nothing like going on or no super big harm that could happen, please go back to wave 2, wave 3, when the enemies start dashing, because there are so many bullets flying around, and if you do one misstep or don't react in the right way, you get instantly demolished. And at this point, if I would die, I would just consider this as over. This means that I didn't get the right stats, I failed. Like, again, the early ones, these are easily replicatable, and there was nothing special in there. But here, this would mean to me, whatever I decided to go for in stats and for weapons, it's not good enough. Now, to be fair, there's still sometimes just unlucky stuff, or someone is not skilled enough, but at this point, I would have said, yep, I'll reset the entire thing and restart. Try it in a different way, maybe more armor, maybe more attack speed, maybe more focus on range, to kill the enemies from further away. But we are kind of still at a point where I can't really deal with cursed enemies, and slowly but surely, the bonus material is building up. Now, this is a little bit of an iffy play, because I just gave the enemies 50% bonus damage, and the problem is not the normal enemies, the problem is the dudes that spawn and shoot at me. And again, just watching this, I wish I wouldn't have went for the shredder. We have so much damage on all of them, and yes, it guarantees explosions once they are red, but every single penetration that hits an enemy has a chance to trigger explosions. Now here we find a hunting trophy. And this is like a moment where I was like, I have no crit, I don't even want to go for crit. But we can earn so much bonus money, and every single milestone that we reach with that means we have one more reroll. By milestone I just mean the amount that we require to reroll, and then I can buy one more bait. So, and if you combine this with the method to buy cheap weapons, then we can get even way more out of that. I really hoped I explained that well, how the rerolling works, that if you buy them all at the same time that you save a reroll, but how this saves you money, or how this allows you to reroll more, but it does mean you see way less items in the shop. And that's actually one thing I considered. If you just reset for a Giga Lucky run with a hook, and then you hope that you just get a black flag, in other words you just reset until you get it, then you could actually take this probably fully out of control in a completely different way, how it's not currently done, but that's a topic for another day. Right now I'm still trying to climb along the wall. I just want to see, can I maybe get through? Can I collect some of the material without dying? And immediately I just get battered. Like, did you see how that single hit did 22 damage to me? That means 2 cursed bullets or body contact with a cursed bullet. I'm just instantly dead. Here I started rerolling because I was like, so far I tried to avoid rerolling because we want to have all of the money for the bait, that we can buy as much as possible. But now I'm like, I can spend a little bit of money to reroll because this will mean that I'll be able to get more money to roll more in the shop. Though there's also a little bit of an issue with that even, because early on everything is a lot cheaper. So rerolling is also cheaper, so you want to get as much bait as you can early on. Of course, also for the late game when you earn way more money, and you'll see we earn a ridiculous amount of money, because keep in mind with the black flag, you earn +1 material per cursed enemy that you kill. And because we spawn like hundreds if not thousands of them per wave, and a lot of them will be cursed, we will earn a stupid amount of money the moment we reach something like wave 18, wave 19, and this will shoot up. Now I think this was here the case. Yeah, do you see how much leftover money we have? We have 300 from the last wave, and still I won't be able to really collect all of that. I'm trying to slowly walk in and see how far I can get without the enemies that spawn behind me being a problem, that my weapons get distracted and can't deal with the enemies rushing in. But it's like, no, I have such an amazing run and I just don't know what to do. Like, do I need more attack speed? Do I need more range? But if the enemy spawns so close, then range is also pointless. So it should be attack speed, but then I don't have enough range for the hordes running in. I'm like, but I need crit for the money, that's the point. So I was like, I'll just go for armor. Whenever I'm uncertain, I'll go for armor, and this is why you often see me in videos not go for armor, even though I say like I want to have it. Yes, that means I want to have it to stay safe, but I don't really need it because I know how to survive it, but things can always go wrong. So yeah, here I pick up a bunch of luck, and that's actually also a lesson where I'm not sure if luck is actually good. On a melee weapon it is, because you get more fruits, and crates are a nice bonus, but let's be honest, you rarely ever get crates. But the thing is, now the shop will have higher rarities of weapons and items, meaning they become way more expensive to buy them and recycle them. And that is bad. We just want to have as much cheap stuff as possible, that later on when the reroll cost is at like 120, we can just buy 3 things for a combined cost of 60 and get a free reroll that doesn't also progress the cost of the rerolls in the shop. One more thing that I wished I put way more focus on is just harvesting, you know, items that give you bonus harvesting in the shop. I kind of only realized way later, wait a second, if I can kill the enemies now super easily from a distance, I should have taken way more bonus harvesting. I will pick up a blood donation, and that was good, but most of the other items I just ignored. Like, I just picked up a frog as well, which is great, more pickup range, but also harvesting. But I should have done this way earlier, because you get so much bonus money and also bonus experience, right? It's both of that. It's not just money, it's also experience. Meaning it's a little bit easier to just build up the stats that you require to make sure that you survive. And I'm still trying to push through. We earned like 1.5k or 1.6k in that wave, but it doesn't fully work out. Now here we got the first bait, but we can't really lock stuff in the shop that well, because we just want to buy it to see more. But this was like a gamble where I wanted to lock one, like we got the starfish, right? We couldn't buy it either way. It means we get bonus money, which is worth it in the long run. So if that gets cursed, that would be utterly amazing. Well, I'm not gonna spoiler it, but another thing I'm really mad about is I kind of forgot about the crit. Okay, sometimes I will sell items with crit on them because they give us instant money, and right now the rolls are cheaper, so it's actually worth it to sell them, to just even roll one more time for one additional bait. But I'm talking about the level ups, you know, that I didn't focus on it all too much, and also on the rolls when I found something in the shop. Though keep in mind, because we lock so much, we don't see many things. But here, I went for armor on the first red one. And I'm like, no, why did you go for armor? Like, now watching this, like, if I would have had 12% crit, look at my crit chance. This would have made a huge difference earning-wise. Ginormous. Okay, it's fine. So here I start buying way more cheap items, and even though this was 65, you don't want to look at the cost of the current reroll. You don't replace the current reroll, you just move the entire line further to the back. So what we save up, that like the reroll that we save, is actually the final reroll that we do. So if the last one costs like 250, then this means we paid 65 to get one more reroll that was worth 250. Like, if it didn't tick so far, if it didn't click so far, why we are doing this with the locking and buying and recycling, hopefully this is the one that makes the most sense. And here I was like, dude, I have 229 material left, I want all of it. I decided to go for the 10 max HP. I have 16 armor at this point, if I see that right. It's a little bit small for me. I even have 8% lifesteal, okay? I'm gonna move out. I'm gonna get all of my money, and I'm gonna get every single bait that I can get. My goal for this video, and by the way, the baby gecko, insane value. This I wanted to have for ages, but I just never found it, and I get so lucky that it's cursed with 47%. That means we are right now at 72%, and we only need one more baby gecko, and it's pretty much 100% that I get all of the material, and we make sure that nothing ever stays as leftover, well, at the end of the wave. Okay, there's still a little bit that is left over, but it doesn't matter. We at least got all from the last wave. And look at the money that we are earning because of the black flag and these dudes just being extra enemies. Hey, we found a crown. I mean, we have a ton of harvesting, so that's nice, but it's at the end of the game. If this was a lot earlier, that would have been great. And here's our first elite. Believe it or not, I totally forgot that he will be there, and I'm like, oh no. And then I look at the damage. Look at the damage we are doing. So yeah, at this point I'm skipping through the entire thing a lot more, just because it's a little bit repetitive, but believe it or not, we are at a point where I can just stand in the center and I can kill all of the enemies. I will forget it a couple of times, like in the beginning I always walk top right. I don't even need to do that, because one shot with our weapon and they are dead. And here is a speed run. We found an amazing spyglass that was cursed, but this is all sped up because you kind of should see what is happening, you know, for those that want to see it. But otherwise, like with that amount of money and with the goal to just get the baits at a cost of 1, this takes years. We just got a second hunting trophy, and as you can see, I'm just constantly replacing our items back and forth, selling weapons. I think many of these were actually wrong, like I didn't do them in the right way, where some of the things got way too expensive, but take a look at our reroll cost. Because we got the spyglass, it was now a lot lower, and this is actually where I should have realized. I did realize that, but I just wasn't sure how it's right, because you still gain like, the reroll cost doesn't look high, right? Why is it not high? Well, also to a very big degree, because we keep filling up the slot and getting the free reroll. If I wouldn't be doing this, we would be like 7, 8, 9, 10, 20 rolls further in, and that wouldn't cost 51. Like, if your reroll costs at 51 and you do 20 rolls, it will be at like 120 maybe. And now we are approaching the final big purchase in the shop, and this will take a while. I will not do a single cut there, just that you can see how much is happening there, and that you can also critique it for those that really know what's going on and what makes sense. And you will see, like, the reroll cost keeps shooting up. It's so great to get these free rerolls in that they give a break and don't consume the current reroll level. Otherwise, this would be way harder to get this much bait, and I didn't want to spoiler myself just how much bait we have. It was at this point where I looked up the world record, you know, because I wanted to know how well am I doing in comparison to that, and I really hope that maybe if I sell the weapons I can get somewhat close, at least to like 500, and I'm like, nope. I mean, 444. You know, 445 is more than what I ever had in this game, by far, by miles, and I'm super impressed as the very first shredder run with minimal experience in this entire thing, like with any other weapon included, but it wasn't enough. But that would have been surprising, right? To instantly just beat that. 445, and now there will be just a quick count where I go over the items and you see it also at the bottom when I hover them that it goes up by 1. We had a total of 29 of them, meaning a total of 474. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you did, then don't forget to subscribe and give the video a like. See you the next time.